Hi, this is Jack Swelters, and in this little video, which is really more of an audio production, I'm going to do something a little bit different. I hope that some of you who have watched these videos have been inspired to come up with your own stories and videos. I've had a lot of nice comments over the past couple of years on my voiceover work on the videos on my channel, Jack Swelters. Considering the fact that I'm strictly an amateur in this department, if I've had any success, I'd like to share with you some of the techniques that I've learned. The main point that I want to get across right here at the beginning is that you do not need to do complicated or expensive things to make nice voiceovers. All you need is a bunch of simple stuff and a couple of free apps that you probably have already. So what follows is my list of tips for making good voice audios. If you're going to make a proper podcast, everyone knows that you've got to have a proper sound studio, correct? Well, I'm going to take you on a tour of my sound studio, which happens to be on the back deck of my house here in Bangkok, Thailand. And as you can see, my sound studio consists of speaking into my iPhone. The quality of the sound is pretty good if I hold the iPhone close to me as if I'm talking to you on the phone, but even if I put it in my pocket, you can see that the sound is still reasonably good. It's about perhaps a foot away from my mouth here, and you pick up a little bit more background noises, some of which are quite pleasant, such as the chirping of birds and the slow blowing of wind, and unfortunately, as you just heard, occasionally the barking of dogs. If you're going to use the iPhone or any other cell phone as your microphone, you better check out the characteristics of the particular mic on the model of your phone. For example, I use the iPhone 3G, and that's the only iPhone that works well for me, and I'll show you why this is later. I'll start off by giving you a little example here, a clip of a video that I made in which the last half of the sound I'm going to change the frequency characteristics as if I'm changing from an iPhone 3G to an iPad or directly to a Mac. And you'll see the deterioration, the loss of the bass and the sound quality. This little clip, by the way, is about a woman in Thailand who has an architect design a house for her, but halfway through the project she begins to have some second thoughts and she thinks back to her poor childhood. And the dreams were almost always about living back in the south of Thailand, in her village where, as a child, she had been a typical rice farmer's daughter. She had a mother and a father who worked most of the time. The father was a bit of a hard nose, and even today, if you see the two of them together, you can tell that there's a little bit of history here. But the champion of this story was Nim's grandmother, who took care of her when her parents were working in the rice paddies, and although illiterate herself, had told her many folk tales. That voice, now long silent, was replaced by books and by school. Okay, well, what's going on here? Somebody has gone to the trouble of characterizing the response frequencies of the various mics in the various iPhones, and here are the results. And you can see, if you look at the green line, that the iPhone 3G, which is an early model, you can buy them secondhand pretty cheap now, I think, has a much wider frequency response in the lower frequencies. Now, I like to have a sort of nice bass tone in my voiceovers, so those frequencies are important to me. The newer iPhones, you can see, cut out that low response, and it's said that the reason that is because if it's windy or people speak directly and cause popping, that you get a worse result. So they like that sort of thin telephony sound, and they've changed the iPhone since the 3G, but if you handle the phone correctly, I think that the fuller response gives a much nicer sound. And I can illustrate this further by comparing three microphones. Was found dead yesterday in a hotel room in Hollywood. found dead Thursday in a motel room in West Hollywood. Was found dead Thursday in a motel room in West Hollywood. Okay, here I am recording in the same environment, but I switched to my Samsung phone, and I am recording in an app called Smart Voice Recorder, which will store the file. Then you can either upload it to Dropbox or send it to yourself by email. You can compare this with the iPhone. I prefer the iPhone sound. It's a little deeper, a little rounder. The Samsung gives a kind of sharper sound, it seems to me. Let's summarize here. Of those three, I like numbers 2 and number 3. Number 1 is the new iPad or the native Mac speaker, which I think is too thin. The second one is the iPhone 3G, which I like. The third one is the studio microphone, which is very nice, but I find using a studio microphone kind of tricky because if you vary the position of the mic next to your mouth, it changes the tone quite a bit. I just don't have the experience, I guess, for the studio mic. I do like to use a close-in mic, which is an idea that I picked up by watching Garrison Keillor, who has a great voice, great storytelling voice, and I copied that style close-in microphone from his approach on his radio shows. One last note, you'll notice that the soundtracks on this little piece I'm doing here, although they're all recorded on an iPhone 3G, I've been recording them in sometimes different places with different background situations. Right now I'm actually holding my my head and the iPhone G into a open-close closet, which I think actually gives pretty good results. So you're not going to hear complete uniformity throughout all of these little clips on this piece. In order to do that, I'd probably have to start all over again and record the whole thing right from the beginning. And then I'd have to remember everything that I'm supposed to say, which is also sort of tricky. Okay, I've got a couple of little add-ons here, and I am, by the way, now recording directly into the Mac microphone in iMovie, where I am putting together this overall production, so you can see the quality of the Mac microphone, which I don't think is really that good. But the next thing you're going to hear is an interview I did of the writer Dean Barrett the other night in a pub where we were sitting. Very noisy background, very difficult recording conditions, and I did it with the Samsung phone. I simply handed the Samsung phone to Dean, told him to talk to me, but hold the phone as if he's also talking to someone on the telephone. And I added the music track later. I asked him to start talking, even though the background noise is pretty loud in this place.
Yeah, I just want to make a kind of a humorous short video, put it up on YouTube, and I want my voice to be able to, people can hear it. Talk about things, you know, just about things, you know what I'm saying? I'm going to have to, well, I actually have one of them is planned. I want to talk in Mandarin with some English subtitles. I am the first sword under heaven.
Okay, the last piece I'm going to show you here, and here, by the way, I'm again talking directly into the Mac. Big room, which is not so good. No editing, no messing with the sound at all. Maybe you think it's okay. To me, it doesn't reach the standard I'd like to see. Anyway. But the last little piece I'd like to show you here is another interview I did, and in this one I'm talking with my daughter, and it sounds as if we're in the same room, but in fact we're on opposite sides of the world. I'm in Bangkok and she's in Los Angeles, and each of us is talking both on the telephone via Skype, but we are also holding another microphone. I'm holding my iPhone 3G, and she, I think, has a little studio microphone that she's got attached to her Mac. And when the two tracks have been loaded up to Dropbox, I just take the two of them and put them together in a program I'll discuss later, and edit them in such a way that it sounds is if we are both talking into the same microphone in the same room. Come on, I said to my daughter. Come on, where? We're going to find our roots. Do you remember that place, Em?
I didn't remember that they lived in Portola Valley. I thought they lived in San Carlos or Redwood City.
Maybe you downgraded their class a little bit on the basis that they were Irish Catholics.
Yeah, right? Or the behavior of their children. Usually people like that don't live in wealthy neighborhoods because they can't make it up the food chain with their bad behavior. Don't you remember they tied me up in the backyard?
They tied you up in the backyard?